Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It is Season 3, Episode 25. We have just finished recording Season 3, Episode 24, a training camp update for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now, for the first time, we are ready to talk about a Steelers football game in 2018. And it's going to be the first preseason game of the year. The Pittsburgh Steelers traveled to Philadelphia to take on the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday. I believe it's at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'll have to double-check that before we finish up. But Thursday night, the Steelers play in their first preseason game. It's been a long time since the Jaguars lost in the playoffs back on January 14th, but we are finally ready to put that behind us. And Austin, are you ready to just jump right into this?
I am ready. I'm excited. The game actually starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I remember that because all the games start at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for some odd reason. It's a weird time that the NFL normally does not play regular season games at, but that is when they're playing.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it, Austin. Why don't you tell me about what you're going to be looking for from the Steelers' offense?
Well, from the offense, I could say I'm genuinely excited about seeing them play. There's so many names I want to keep track of, but the biggest for me is going to be Josh Dobbs. I want Josh Dobbs to have the best preseason that a quarterback has ever had, and that starts this game. I don't expect big things out of him, but I sure hope for it. I want the Steelers to be able to trade him before preseason is over, which is a long shot, but I really still think it's manageable if Josh Dobbs has a good preseason. But he has to have a good preseason, at least like a good first two games, because I believe the roster shrinks after the second preseason game. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's after the second preseason date. So optimally, the Steelers would trade him then. But regardless, after him, my eyes are on the wide receiver battle going on. There's a bunch of guys that are fighting for not a lot of spots. And those guys include Quadri Henderson, Justin Hunter, Marcus Tucker, Damian Patterson, Darius Hayward-Bay. I'm sorry. I think out of all these guys, I'm watching to see what Henderson and Tucker do most of all. For Henderson, he's got to prove he has a value as an offensive piece while also proving he can be a great special teams piece in the NFL. For Tucker, on the other hand, I feel as though this is his last shot. So he's probably going to be going as hard as possible to make the roster this year, as Damian Patterson might take his practice squad spot. So that's something to be watching out for this year. As for the rest of the team, I think the best battle in this game to watch is going to be the offensive line versus the Eagles' defensive line. The Eagles' defensive line depth is insane, so it's going to be really telling on how well the Steelers' backup offensive linemen are in this game. And it's going to be exciting to monitor. It's going to be one of the better battles to see in this game. What are you looking for?
Jones is probably going to play no more than a quarter and certainly no more than a half of the game. But there's a few players I'm keeping my eyes on. First and foremost, if you listen to the last episode, I'm looking at James Conner. He's looking to show what he was worth, that he was worth the third-round pick. The Steelers invested in him last season. I expect to see him early and often, both through the air and on the ground. Besides him, I want to see James Washington. He, like Juju Smith-Schuster last season, didn't really jump out at you with his measurables and his talent. But he sure made up for it with his work ethic, and over time he just got better and better. We'll get our first glance at who James Washington could possibly be in the future in this game. Outside of those guys, keep an eye on Chukwuma Okorafor, and if he plays, Vance McDonald. It'll be interesting to see what McDonald does in this new offense of Randy Fichtner. He's been split out wide a lot in camp in the slot as opposed to up against the line like he typically was last season. Okorafor, the tackle, will have his first chance to display the raw talent that made him a third-round pick this year. Remember, this game isn't so much about the offense versus the defense. It is. It's not that it's not important. It's just that this is more about how the players themselves are performing in lieu of a win, or rather instead of a win, because a lot of these guys are fighting for a job. Many of these players that we're going to see are playing an NFL game for the first time ever and are trying to make sure that it's not their last game ever. So remember to keep some of those names in mind. And remember, Terrell Watson made the team last year, and he was practically a nobody at the start of the season. He scored a touchdown in the first preseason game against the Giants. So watch out for some of those guys. Just because they perform well in the preseason doesn't mean they'll make the team. But hey, Terrell Watson did it. Mike Hilton did it, and look at how those guys did. I mean, I know Watson didn't stay on the team, but those guys had productive seasons in their own rights, especially Hilton. So you never know. And speaking of Hilton, how much are we going to see him and some of the other defensive players?
Well, this is we might see him playing some fun, weird positions. Like they've been testing Mike Hilton at free safety, so we might actually see him playing a little bit of free safety snaps in this preseason game, which is going to be interesting. Also, Cameron Sutton is doing the same thing. He was being tested at free safety, so we might see a few snaps of him at free safety in this game. Don't know yet about really how much they're going to play because Mike Hilton's obviously a starter, so we'll see on how many snaps they're actually going to get, but it's a possibility. Also, Morgan Burnett at linebacker. Morgan Burnett said he could play linebacker, and the Steelers said they might be able to use him in a linebacker position, so that might be a possibility. I don't really think I've heard much of that happening at camp, but also a possibility. That's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for all the weird sub-packages that the Steelers use in this game. I'm almost more interested in the coaching for the defense in this game than the actual players. I feel like there's so much interesting things. I want to see if the Steelers improved at tackling. I want to see the communication. I want to see all these weird packages with like a 2-2-7 package and how they're actually going to use these people. But as for specifics, I think the player we're going to be most focused on has got to be Terrell Edmonds. I gave Edmonds third-round grade when I looked at him pre-draft, so I'm going to be watching and judging hard as he was drafted as a first-round pick. And obviously it's always exciting to just watch the first-round pick, see what they do in preseason, and then overhype them or get mad like I'm probably going to be. But after that, there's not really much I'm super excited to see other than maybe Joshua Frazier. When he was drafted, I thought he was making the roster, but now it's looking like McCullers has won his spot. So seeing Frazier in action should be interesting, seeing if he could actually get produce on the field and maybe try and fight McCullers back for his spot. Other than that, it's not really much else I'm really looking for. What are you looking for in the defense in this game?
I'm right there with you, Austin. I'm actually more interested to see mostly how the Steelers deploy their defense as opposed to who's playing where, and who is doing what. I'm sure they won't reveal a ton, but I'm hoping to see how they plan on deploying the safeties and where guys like Edmonds and Davis and Burnett are gonna be most of the time. According to the Steelers and people who've been watching at training camp, the Steelers have reintroduced the dollar defense back to their team, which you mentioned already before, Austin. We haven't seen that since 2015. That's the 2-2-7 look you had mentioned. They'll also be playing, obviously, nickel, which is typical, the dime package, which we've seen, and even a little bit of quarter, which is 1 defensive lineman, 3 linebackers, and 7 defensive backs. So as far as players go, it'll be interesting. Or sorry, it was rather scheme. My goodness. As far as scheme goes, that'll be interesting to see is what kind of personnel are on the field for certain situations. Then, as far as the players go, first and foremost, I'm excited to see Terrell Edmonds. He has been all over the practice field this training camp, and I'm ready to see him make an impact in a game-like situation. I want him to make me think make me wrong for thinking that he was a reach in the first round. Besides that, I'm also interested in the inside linebacker position. Who starts? Is it Matakevich or Bostic? And who plays better? Who plays more snaps? Who gets the first team reps? Who gets the second team reps? How these guys perform in this game could give them a legitimate advantage or disadvantage as we get closer and closer to the start of the season regarding who gets that starting spot. And then beyond that, you covered it, Austin. It's the matchup between Joshua Frazier and Daniel McCullers. for the final defensive line spot. That is certainly very interesting to me as well. All right, as far as special teams go, Austin, probably not a ton to talk about, but I know there's still some interesting things here. It's not like there aren't any position battles here.
Yeah, you can't discount special teams. Right now, Artie Burns is listed as a backup kick returner on the depth chart, and I'm excited to see that. I don't think we've ever really seen him return anything. I can't remember seeing last preseason. I just can't remember it. I think I was interesting. It was a surprise to me when he was listed on the depth chart as that. So that's going to be interesting to watch. As for punt return, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Henderson and Sutton can do since they were both good returners in college. And Sutton is currently listed as the backup returner behind Antonio Brown. I'm really just hoping one of them challenges Brown for the starting job on special teams. Mostly Sutton, because Henderson probably isn't making the team at this point. But I'm really hoping for some good stuff out of Sutton on the punt return team. How about you? You see anything interesting on special teams going into this game?
No, although you mentioning Artie Burns made me think. I honestly can't remember. I could be wrong, but I don't think the Steelers have had a defensive player returning kicks and punts since Mike Tomlin's first season. I'm trying to think about the punt returners. You know, Antonio Brown's been the punt returner his whole career. Before that, Antoine Randall was there in 2010. Santonio Holmes, Mewelde Moore. I remember Allen Rossum had a kick return for a touchdown, but I don't think the Steelers have had anyone else besides him as a defender returning kicks and punts. That's just something that doesn't happen. For whatever reason, Mike Tomlin just doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting that they're actually going back to it. I didn't read the article. I saw an article by Steelers Depot, or maybe it was just a tweet saying that they were surprised that they're actually letting a defensive player do it. So you're definitely right that it's been a very long time since the Steelers have had a defensive returner.
It's not unheard of either. A lot of teams have had returners that were defensive players. Obviously, Rod Woodson was one of the best return men ever, and he was a safety. He was a Hall of Fame safety. Not to mention guys like Ty Law. Ed Reed was even a punt returner in the past. So kind of interesting. A lot of those guys have disappeared. Now it's all wide receivers. I kind of miss the days when defensive backs and players like that were punt returners. Don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we still see it in some degree. The Titans have Adoree Jackson. I think Adoree Jackson. I don't know how to say his name. I'll be honest with you. But he returns kicks, and he's been really good so far. I was about to say Eric Weems. He's a wide receiver. I don't know what's going on in my head.
Patrick Peterson, does he still return?
There's another cornerback that I was thinking of, and I thought Falcons, and that's why Eric Weems came up. But no, I'm just stupid. I don't. Only one I know is Adoree Jackson.
Does Patrick Peterson still return punts?
I don't know.
He used to. He definitely used to. I know that. But that'll be something for another time, because now I'm interested, and I'll have to look into that later. But that'll be something interesting to look at. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about besides that on special teams?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. I just wanted to add that there's not a ton more going on here. Just keep an eye on the punters. Jordan Berry's a starter, obviously, and Matt Weil was the guy brought in to compete with him. Weil's going to have a great preseason to unseat Berry, but who knows? Time will tell. And right now I learned that the backup long snapper a la James Harrison in 2008 is Vance McDonald. So if he's also injured, which could be a possibility, geez, who knows? But yeah, thought that would be interesting to point out. All right, this will be kind of a little bit different than the way we typically do it, because the keys to the game aren't necessarily about winning and losing, but what's the key for the offense going into this preseason game, Austin?
It's to play Dobbs a lot. It's really him that needs the most playing time. Roethlisberger and Rudolph have their spots secured. It's really between Jones and Dobbs who get that last spot. We need to see way more out of Dobbs than we do out of Jones. So playing Dobbs is going to be key for the Steelers. How about your offensive key?
Well, when Landry Jones is in the game, get the ball in the hands of James Conner a lot. I want him running the ball. I want him catching the ball. I want every chance you can get him the ball, give it to him. I want him to be a workhorse when Jones is the quarterback. When Rudolph and Dobbs come in, like you were saying, just air it out. Let them throw the ball all over the yard. Let these guys give it everything they have and let them get as much experience throwing the ball in as many situations as possible. It can only help them, even if they have bad games like Landry Jones did a few years ago where he threw 4 interceptions. It's a learning experience. Now is the time to make those mistakes. What about the defense, Austin? What's your defensive key for the Steelers?
Defense has shown they could tackle. Maybe mostly backups playing, but one of the biggest issues from last season has been the poor tackling for him. And Keith Butler has said he's been working on it, so I want to see some progress on some of the guys on the roster bubble. I feel like that's more important to see than the actual starters. I want to see that tackling has improved at the bottom level and then worked all the way up. But what is your defensive key?
Mine is similar in a sense that it was another fundamental problem for the Steelers' defense last year, and that is communication. For the past 3 years, the Steelers have struggled mightily with communication issues that have led to blown assignments and other issues on the defense. The Steelers specifically added guys like John Bostic and Morgan Burnett to help improve communication among the defense. So I want to see now if communication is better or if the Steelers are still struggling with communication problems on the defense. So as few blown assignments as possible, the better, especially considering the fact that it is a preseason game. But communication is the key for the Steelers' defense. All right, on to X Factors. Austin, give me your offensive X Factor.
Well, my offensive X Factor is Chukwuma Okorafor. As I said earlier in this podcast, Eagles' defensive line depth is insane. And also, Okorafor has gotten some high praise coming out of the training camp. I want to see if he could be the next Chris Hubbard in this preseason game. I want to see how well he could handle an actual decent defensive line. So who is your offensive X Factor?
I'm going with Mason Rudolph. The potential successor to Ben Roethlisberger will get his first NFL snaps on Thursday, barring anything unforeseen. His performance won't make or break his career, but he's been having a fantastic week at training camp and seems to have turned a corner. Will we see just how much of a quick study he is? Time will tell. On the defensive side, who is your X Factor?
My X Factor is Ola Sunkanmi Adenei. I tried so hard to get it down. I really did, and I messed up I can't believe I messed up the last name, but not a guy either of us have really talked about much. I probably have avoided it just because of his name, but he has had a solid training camp for an undrafted free agent, and the outside linebacker position is so thin. I think Adenei has a solid shot based on his performance in these next coming games, and in this game specifically. So he's an X Factor for me. Who is your defensive X Factor?
I'm sorry. What's that name? Ola Sunkanmi? Adenei?
Yeah, Ola Sunkanmi Adenei. The last name I'm still messed up on. I actually got down his first name because it reads out basically as it looks.
It's easier than it looks.
The last name confused me because I was reading like how to pronounce it. It's like it's Adenei. That's it. It's Adenei. I don't know how you get just Adenei out of it, and that's what confused me. But his last name is just Adenei.
My oh my, the English language never fails.
Yeah.
Anyways, back on task here. My defensive X Factor, going a bit outside the box here. I'm going with outside linebacker Keon Adams. Everyone's going to have their eyes on the new additions like Burnett and Bostic and the inside linebackers battle. But the outside linebacker group is now thin with Arthur Moats gone and the uncertainty around Bud Dupree. Keon Adams was a player the team was very high on before his season ended with an injury in the preseason last year. If you want to check out a wild card who could have a pretty big game, check out Keon Adams. He had a pretty good practice the other day too in backs on backers, so keep your eye on him. All right, thus concludes the X Factors. So let's move on to our bold predictions for this game. I mean, I don't even know what qualifies as bold for this kind of game, but Why don't you give it a shot, Austin?
My first bold prediction is there are going to be two safeties in this game. I honestly didn't know what to pick because it's hard to pick when you don't know how much players are going to play. And then my second one, I think this is my first bad bold prediction, and bad in terms of the Steelers, bad in the Steelers side of things. This one is Josh Dobbs throws 3 interceptions at less than 105 yards. That would be what I expect out of him. Those are my expectations. But what are your bold predictions?
Wow. I don't think I can top that, but I have Mason Rudolph throwing for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns with no picks. Basically a perfect game for him in limited time. And then on defense, I'm giving Keon Adams 2 sacks and an interception. And why not? Just because you said you're going to have 2 safeties in your game, I'm going to make sure that Adams has both of them.
All right. Damn, he's going to have the best game of any preseason player ever.
Just retire his number right after that. Oh, man. What a day. Okay. Final score predictions. Who wins this game?
I have the Eagles winning 22-16. I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring affair, as most preseason games are, as teams work out their kinks and keep switching out players for new players and restarting things. But Eagles end up coming out on top. Who do you think wins?
I also have the Eagles winning, this time by a score, though, of 24-20. The Steelers haven't won a lot of preseason games the last few years, with last year notwithstanding. I just feel like the Eagles are going to just have the crowd going in front of them, even though it's a preseason game. You know, there'll be the buzz in the air playing for the first time since the Super Bowl win. I just think that'll be enough to push them over the top. It's not anything I'm reading into too terribly much. It is a preseason game. So that concludes our analysis of the game. Let's talk about some interesting points for the NFL. And first and foremost, the Hall of Fame game. Let's talk about this new helmet rule with the whole lowering the helmet gets flagged. That was called at least 4 times, with a couple of them being changed to hits on defenseless receivers. But the 17-16 win for the Ravens, it might have been an interesting game, but a lot of people were very frustrated with all the flags that were being thrown with this new rule. And Austin provided a statistic, not necessarily related, but viewership was down 18% from last year's Hall of Fame game. So what are your thoughts on this new helmet rule and how often it's being flagged right now and how much it could be flagged in the preseason and in the regular season, and what does this all mean?
Well, this is essentially the new catch rule, and even in bad cases, one door closes and another opens. They fixed one thing and they just messed up another thing. So congratulations, NFL. You had another confusing thing that people are going to be mad about. Well, what's going to happen? I think that refs are in preseason mode as well. So it's going to be called a little bit more now than it will be in regular season, because everyone's got to get their practice in. This isn't just practice for the players and the coaches. This is practice for the refs to try out new rules, try and enforce new rules, see what's good, see what works, get feedback, and stuff. So I think it might not be as bad as it seems in preseason so far. I mean, we only have one game to work off of. We'll have a bunch of games to work off of in a day or so. But for now, I think it's just preseason and everyone's working out the kinks. I think it's okay for now. If it gets called like this in the regular season, there's going to be a problem, though. And that 18% drop-off is going to be worse next year. But what do you think about the helmet rule?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into it a ton right now because I haven't seen it in person. I missed the Hall of Fame game. But I agree with you. It's being thrown a lot in the preseason, and it's probably going to make some of the preseason unwatchable. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be pretty tough to watch probably when there are flags being thrown a lot. But like you said, Austin, it's preseason for them too. It's a learning experience, and it's good that they do this now as opposed to in the regular season when the games matter. But there's still a lot to be learned, and it seems really confusing right now, which is exactly what I thought the NFL was wanting to get away from, but time will tell. So we'll have further analysis on this after the first preseason game because I'm sure there's going to be a ton of flags thrown there, but we'll just keep that in mind for a later date. All right. On to the next bit of news. The Patriots' thin wide receiver core got even thinner the other day. They released, actually, I believe it was technically yesterday, they released former Super Bowl champion Malcolm Mitchell. Mitchell was once a promising young receiver for the Patriots, but injuries have derailed his career since Super Bowl 51. In fact, that was his last game. Now the Patriots receiving core for Week 1 looks like this. Chris Hogan, Kenny Britt, Philip Dorsett, Cordarrelle Patterson, and now recently acquired Eric Decker. Julian Edelman is serving a 4-game suspension. What's going on?
Well, some random scrub is going to step up and be great out of nowhere. I feel it. But on a serious note, this group is awful. I think there's going to be a heavy reliance on Gronk and their running back corral, like Mashoni Michael and Rex Burkhead. I think that this is not a good group. I like Chris Hogan, but not as a number one receiver. Kenny Britt and Dorsett are absolute trash. I will not. I don't have anything good to say about those two. And I think Eric Decker is washed up, unfortunately. I like Eric Decker, but I liked Eric Decker about 4 years ago when he played with Peyton Manning, 5 years ago. Then Cordarrelle Patterson hasn't shown anything so far, so why should I believe he starts now? Because he plays with Brady? I'm not sold on that, because Cordarrelle Patterson just really has shown nothing. It's just a bad group. What do you think about the group of wide receivers? And then stupidly cutting Malcolm Mitchell.
Well, the Patriots cutting Malcolm Mitchell, I think it tells me that he might have a career-threatening injury. That's what I think that means. Beyond that, I think that without Edelman, the Patriots receiving core is as weak as the Steelers' inside linebacking core without Ryan Shazier. I don't know if it really matters all that much, but a receiving core like this is hard to generate offense from. And I know Rob Gronkowski, the running backs, and Tom Brady, but my goodness. Oh, man. Chris Hogan's good, like you said. Dorsett's never shown anything. I think Kenny Britt is terribly overrated. Patterson hasn't shown much. Decker is washed. He's definitely washed. I don't know. We'll see. Then again, they'll pull something out of their butts and we'll make something out of it. But I don't see it right now. Speaking of Patterson, his former team, the Raiders, now coached by John Gruden, he called out Martavis Bryant the other day, saying, quote, "He's got to get out here and play better." Bryant doesn't seem to be in danger of being cut, seeing as how he was acquired at the price of a third-round pick in the draft this year, but it has become clear that he's fallen behind receivers Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson on the depth chart, with Seth Roberts hot on his tail too. This trade looks better and better for the Steelers every day, doesn't it? And don't forget, he's potentially facing a suspension too.
Yeah, this is terrible. This is terrible for the Raiders. It was a good introduction to John Gruden as a head coach. Like, honestly, I think it's just it's taken a while since it's an 18-hour drive, but I think the Oakland Police Department is on their way to Pittsburgh now to arrest the entire staff for highway robbery, bro. Like, they want their third-round pick back. They're like, what did we do? Like, we didn't sign up for John Gruden to do that. We didn't mean it. We want it back. You stole it. You stole it. And that's exactly what happened. The Steelers stole that. I am impressed to this day by John Gruden's stupidity and how he was back to being a head coach. But what do you have to say on that subject?
Remember when he could have been Randy Moss, when that was what Bryant was being compared to? Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
It feels like a very long time ago.
I mean, geez, he scored like 6 touchdowns in his first 4 games, and then, right off a cliff. Another receiver who has been traded is Browns wide receiver Corey Coleman, traded to the Buffalo Bills for a 7th-round pick in 2020. What do you think of the move?
I know Coleman has been injured and then had that horrible wide-open drop against the Steelers to secure 0-6 team, but I really do think the Bills did great in this trade. It's such a low-risk, high-reward kind of thing. I think Coleman could still be a solid wide receiver. And I think the Browns only did it because they're trying their best to land Dez, or they think they're landing him. They said, because they came out and said that the offer is it's on Dez Bryant's table. It's in his court if he wants to come to the Browns or not. They didn't change their offer after that or before that. But I think they're confident that he's going to go to them because, I mean, no one else is offering Dez anything else. It's really like Baltimore and Browns are the only two teams that have an offer in right now, I believe. So I feel like he's got to pick one. He's not going to not play. But, yeah, what do you think of the trade?
Well, you mentioned it already. Coleman's lasting memory as a Brown is dropping that wide-open pass on a 4th down against the Steelers to clinch that historic 0-16 season. You can take a player out of Cleveland, but you can't take the Cleveland out of a player. So, I don't know. Maybe he's probably better than that drop, but I just saw that and I saw all I needed to see. That's really all I have to say. Besides that, we talked about the Pro Football Hall of Fame game. The Hall of Famers were inducted, including Terrell Owens at his alma mater, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. The Hall of Fame is now considering adding a rule that makes players have to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony in Canton, Ohio, by having all 25 of their semifinalists sign an agreement before they go, before the finalists are picked. That, to me, just tells me that the Hall of Fame is a complete and utter joke in the way that they select their Hall of Famers. The voters and writers make it all about themselves. And Owens has a right to be pissed off. I'm not a fan of his by any stretch of the imagination, but he had a right to be upset, and he did what he thought was right, which, I don't know. I still would have gone, but I understand why he didn't. And the Hall of Fame acting like this is proving Owens right, and it's just the level of pettiness is unreal from what's supposed to be an upstanding and professional organization here, and it's laughable. It is absolutely laughable.
Really is. Like, if you didn't want people to not show up to the ceremony, you probably should have done fair voting where, Terrell Owens got in on most likely the first year because he's one of the best wide receivers of all time. Like, you got disrespected because there's some bias. You can't prove it, but there was some bias against Terrell Owens, probably because of his character. Cause, Terrell Owens, you either like him or you hate him. And, you love him or you hate him. And it's just, I think bias came in, and I think he had the right to be mad. And, again, I agree with John that I would have shown up if I was him, but, I understand why he didn't do it. I understand that he felt disrespected, and he should. He should feel disrespected. He should have been in his first year, but regardless, it's laughable that they are making a rule for this because they got their feelings hurt because they disrespected him first. It's just a petty war almost. That's all I really have to say on it.
Yeah, it's just nonsense, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to not having to deal with this anymore because, to my knowledge, I don't think anyone like Owens is going into the Hall of Fame anytime soon, right? Or is up for ballot, right?
Nope, not that I know of.
All right. Well, I look forward to not having to talk about this again for a while, hopefully then. So we'll stick to football then, if you will. And with that should conclude this episode, unless if there's anything else you wanted to say.
Nope, I think we're done here.
Alrighty. Been a good day, good night, and we're ready for Steelers football. It's finally around the corner. Austin, are you going to be able to watch the game on Thursday?
I will not be able to. I will be at work, unfortunately.
That's a shame. You won't be missing much, but I guess I'll have a chance to watch it. What jersey should I wear? Oh,
you should wear Willie Parker because Willie Parker's dope.
I should. I definitely should. I was thinking. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast. Austin got me a what is it? TSE? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, TSE Sports Shop.
It was an autographed Barry Foster jersey. Barry Foster, the Steelers' record holder for most rushing yards in a single season. I just moved into a new apartment, and I've been trying to hang everything up, but I had a setback because right now I have the turtle tank in my room, as I've mentioned before, Austin. And I bought a new tank, and I was going to move the turtle out to the living room. Turns out the new tank has not been properly sealed, and it leaked everywhere. So I need to reseal it before I move the turtle out there. So I still have a tank in my room, and I'm trying to get that out of there before I hang everything up, because I don't know if I'm going to have to move stuff again. But my goal is to have this Foster jersey hung up as soon as possible, because that needs to be displayed. And once I do, it's going on social media, so just keep that in mind.
Nice.
So
I'm excited.
all
I'm
right.
hyped.
I am too. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. Post our podcasts and articles there. I had an article, at least part 1, of the top 10 Steelers teams that didn't win the Super Bowl. I got in the middle of my move, so I never finished part 2. I'm going to try to finish that as soon as possible and hopefully get one more in before we get to the regular season. And I'm also hoping to get back to posting highlight videos from the 2005 season. Again, the move kind of complicated things. And work has been busy too, so I'm hoping to get back into that. But we are right here. The NFL season is right in front of us, and I'm so excited for it. I am so excited for football season to get underway, and it's a great time. It's a great time, and I'm glad to be able to get back into the saddle, if you will, Austin.
Yeah, I'm ready for football. I can't wait.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
Good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.